Prepare to discover a story that will offer a fresh perspective on spiritual leadership within the Church. In an exclusive interview, Breaking Years of Silence, John Joseph Prevost, the elder brother of the newly elected Pope Leo VI, has unveiled a family secret, providing an unprecedented glimpse into the pontiff's life. This is more than just a biography. It's a narrative of a calling that didn't originate in opulent ecclesiastical chambers, but in a humble home setting, under the tender guidance of a remarkable woman. Behind the serene, prayerful figure who now occupies the chair of St. Peter lies a family saga woven from threads of unwavering faith, silent sacrifice, and above all, the boundless love of Mildred Martinez. Robert Francis Prevost, born on September 14, 1955, in Chicago, now the 69-year-old Pope Leo X, has always preferred to remain out of the spotlight. However, his family has now chosen to share secrets that reveal the depth of his leadership style. Be ready to delve into the essence of his humility, his passionate devotion to prayer, and his profound connection with ordinary people. This story is not merely about a pope, but about the unseen force that shaped one of the most influential individuals of our time. It is a story of love, faith, and the conviction that the most sacred things are not always conspicuous. They often manifest in silence. We introduce you to Mildred Martinez, the invisible driving force that shaped the heart of the future Pope. Born in 1911 from a blend of Dominican and New Orleans Creole cultures, Mildred, or Millie as she was affectionately known, was more than just a Catholic librarian with a master's degree from the prestigious DePaul University in Chicago. She was the Prevost family's spiritual compass. John, Leo VI's brother, recalls that faith in their home was not an imposed dogma, but a living experience breathed every day. Mildred led the Altar and Rosary Society, volunteered tirelessly, and shared her knowledge for decades as librarian in Catholic schools. But her primary mission was nurturing the hearts of her children. Robert, the youngest son, grew up in a world of books, prayers, and silence. John speaks with emotion about his mother's nightly ritual, a small candle lit before an image of the Sacred Heart, and whispered prayers. There was no coercion, only a gentle invitation to spirituality, expressed in humble yet unwavering gestures. It was in this atmosphere of reverence and closeness to the divine that Robert discovered God, accessible and humble, much like his own mother. Mildred was not verbose, but every word she spoke was filled with wisdom. She believed that forgiveness was a necessary condition for sincere prayer. This simple yet profound lesson was indelibly etched in the future Leo VI's memory and, many years later, reflected in his work in Peru. Forgiveness, she taught, is the most difficult yet the most sacred door. Robert's childhood, though destined for the papacy, was not without its shadows. Despite living in a predominantly Catholic neighborhood, the Prevost Martinez family faced discrimination and poverty. John, his brother, shares painful memories. Mildred, despite her university education, had to fight for recognition in society and at work. Yet, her mother's resilience was unshakable. She never complained or spoke ill of those who underestimated her. Her only response was, "God sees what is not expressed in words." This quiet faith deeply resonated with Robert from an early age. By 14, he was already helping out in the parish, doing everything he could. At 17, a desire to dedicate himself to religion began to form in his heart, but the definitive decision to commit to God solidified at 20. when his mother fell gravely ill. John recalls the scene with touching clarity. Mildred in her hospital bed, in pain but fearless, immersed in prayer. In that moment of vulnerability and unwavering faith, Robert understood the true essence of self-giving, of unconditional surrender. It wasn't mystical visions or grand revelations that led him to his priestly vocation, but the everyday example of a woman who loved God in quiet solitude. When the world heard the name Robert Francis Prévost, elected as Leo X, few knew of the complex life journey that led him to the balcony of St. Peter's. Even fewer knew of the immense influence Mildred Martinez had on him. For decades, Millie, as she was known in the parish in New Lenox, Illinois, was more than just a librarian. She was a sower of vocations, nurturing them not through instruction and sermons, but through her example. John's testimony, her eldest son, leaves no doubt Mildred saw faith not as a set of rules, but as a constant manifestation of humble love. "My mother didn't talk about holiness, she lived it," John asserts with the conviction of someone who witnessed this truth daily. The future Pope Leo XI's life path was inextricably linked to his mother's simple yet profoundly meaningful expressions of faith. This was evident in the reverence with which she prepared the altar for weekly services, the hours she dedicated to studying the lives of saints, or her habit of interrupting all tasks to quietly contemplate before the crucifix in the living room. The pontiff's brother, John, recalls one of the most memorable episodes. In moments of anxiety, their mother would not resort to empty reassurances, but would take her children's hands, lead them to her prayer room, and invite them to gaze upon the face of Christ. Without extra words, without promises that everything would be fine, she simply pointed to the image of the Savior. This gesture, repeated year after year, gradually shaped Robert's soul, who, even at a young age, demonstrated spiritual maturity far beyond his years. His upbringing in an atmosphere of the unseen, in the reverence for silence, in love for the Eucharist, and in simple prayer, laid the seeds of a calling that, years later, led him to the chair of St. Peter. Mildred Martinez, a native of New Orleans, imbued with Dominican and French cultural traditions, was a woman of deep and rich Catholic identity. Her primary education was not scholarly, but the wisdom of the heart, the ability to guide without coercing, to shape without resorting to harsh punishments, to inspire without seeking to dominate. Mildred Martinez's faith, according to her son John, was characterized by sincerity and simplicity. Far from extravagant mysticism and ostentatious piety, her faith was firm, sober, and unwavering. John confidently states that this faith permeated the children's souls almost imperceptibly, transforming them from within. His words convey not only filial love, but also the unwavering conviction that Pope Leo X, as we know him today, would not have come into being without the invisible influence of his mother. Mildred passed away in 1991, before her son became a bishop, and long before his election as Pope. However, those close to her affirm that she always felt God had a special mission for Robert. She never spoke of it openly, never boasted, but her gestures and faith-filled silence revealed it. In her final years, she continued to serve her parish with unwavering devotion, always holding her rosary and jotting down short spiritual reflections in small notebooks. In one such notebook, found many years after her passing, a prophetic prayer was discovered on the last page. "Lord, if one day my children serve you, make them humble like Joseph, firm like Peter, and silent like John. John, the Pope's brother, recounts that Robert read this prayer before leaving for Peru as an Augustinian missionary. Since then, it has become his personal prayer before every important decision. He still keeps this notebook as a family relic, connecting the current pontificate with the faith lived in the solitude of their home. And today, seeing his brother as the successor of Peter, John confidently declares, "My mother is not in Rome, but she is present in every gesture of my brother, in his manner of speaking, looking, being silent, in his love for the poor, in his reverence for the liturgy, in his rejection of the pursuit of power. In all of this, she is there, Mildred Martinez." It never occurred to her that one of her sons would occupy the chair of Peter, and she did not seek it. Her faith did not seek honors or recognition. Her mission was simple yet profound, to form people of God. And she did it not from a pulpit or in a seminary, but in the humble setting of a kitchen, in the hallways of a Catholic school, on the pews of a parish church in Illinois. Robert Francis Prévost Pope Leo XIV was the youngest son, and, as his brother John recounts, there was a special bond between them, not just childhood affection, but deep admiration. From a young age, Robert closely observed his mother, listened to her, and almost subconsciously imitated her. As a child, he wasn't the most outgoing, didn't seek attention, and didn't shine in public. He possessed a quiet seriousness that set him apart from his peers. While other teenagers played games, he preferred to spend time in church or accompany his mother to parish meetings. He happily helped in silence, arranging flowers, tidying books, lighting candles. These were small but constant gestures, performed not out of obligation, but with genuine joy, as his brother recalls. By age 15, his interest in religious life was already evident. However, it was a profound conversation with Mildred that solidified his resolve. One night, after everyone else was asleep, Mildred sat beside him, offered a cup of tea, and asked, "Do you understand what it costs to say yes to God?" Robert remained silent. She continued, "It costs everything, but it is everything. If you choose to follow Him, do it with all your heart, with joy, and with unwavering faith." These maternal words, simple and sincere, resonated in his soul like Mary's words in the Gospel. And from that moment, his life path was set with utmost clarity. When Robert decided to enter the Order of St. Augustine, Mildred saw him off without shedding a tear of sorrow. Not because she didn't feel the pain of separation, but because she knew she was giving her son to someone who could love him more than she could, to God. John vividly recalls the touching moment of farewell when Mildred handed Robert a humble wooden crucifix. This symbol of faith, devoid of the glitter of gold and precious stones, was marked only by a simple yet deeply significant inscription, "So that you never forget who called you." This cross, according to sources close to the Pope, remains his constant companion to this day. It holds a place of honor on his desk from his appointment as bishop in distant Peru, and later as prefect in majestic Rome. Even now, as Pope, this cross is one of the few things that have retained their original place. Over time, Robert Francis Prévost transformed into a tireless missionary. He traveled to Peru, where he dedicated most of his adult life to supporting indigenous communities, training future priests, and sharing the burdens of life with the most disadvantaged. His style of ministry was characterized by an unwavering closeness to people, reserve, and firmness of conviction. Many see in this consistency a direct reflection of the upbringing he received from his mother. Mildred passed away in 1991 when Robert was only 36. She was not destined to witness his elevation to the episcopate, but her legacy was already fully manifesting in her son. The words she spoke to him in their cozy kitchen, the prayers uttered in the quiet of the night, the books left on the table with carefully underlined passages, all became an integral part of the future Pope's spiritual world. John shares a memory of one of his mother's most touching habits: writing short phrases in the margins of her religious books, turning them into personal prayers. One of them read, "God chooses not the perfect, He chooses the available." And another, "Faith is not shouted, it is lived until the world asks why." These simple yet profound sayings remarkably accurately reflect the character of the current Pope Leo VI. Leo X is not a pope of loud and dramatic gestures. He is a shepherd who acts without much fanfare but with a depth that touches people's hearts. Those who carefully study his style understand that his greatest inspirer was not a renowned theologian or an influential cardinal, but his mother, Mildred. After entering the order of St. Augustine and completing his education in Rome, Robert Francis Prevost, the future Pope Leo X, was sent as a missionary to one of the most disadvantaged areas of northern Peru, the Diocese of Chiclayo. There, thousands of miles from home, began the quietest, yet most challenging and transformative phase of his priestly life. But even from a distance, his mother's image remained alive and vivid for him. According to his brother John, Robert travelled with minimal belongings. However, among the most essential items were two priceless relics: a small, worn Bible that belonged to Mildred, and an engraving with her handwriting that read, "When you don't know what to do, kneel and listen." This phrase became his quiet refuge in the most difficult moments. His mission in Peru was full of trials. He encountered hunger, disease, injustice. He also witnessed the indifference of some clergy, the soullessness of institutions and spiritual loneliness. And more than once, as he confessed to his brother in letters, he felt that God's silence weighed heavier than any burden. But it was in such moments, by his own account, that his mother's voice sounded firm, quiet, but persistent. On the hardest days, I would lock myself in the chapel with her Bible. I wouldn't say a word. I would just sit and look at the underlined pages. Sometimes that was enough to find the strength to continue, Robert wrote in one of his letters. John, who carefully preserved these family messages, is convinced that it was Mildred's simple yet profound spirituality that sustained his brother on the missionary land. Notably, even after her death, Mildred's influence continued to shape him because she sowed not just words in his heart, but firm convictions. One such unwavering conviction that Mildred instilled in her son was that Christian love is not just elevated feelings, but daily sacrifice, and Robert deeply internalized this lesson. He was not a bishop who stayed in his office. He walked for hours to reach the most remote communities. He shared meals with simple peasants and understood that the church is built not by complex strategies, but by unnoticed gestures of love. One nun who worked with him during those years recalls often seeing him sitting alone on a monastery bench at dusk. He didn't speak, didn't take notes. He simply remained silent. One day she asked him if anything was bothering him. He replied, "I'm doing what my mother did, giving God space to speak." This style, more contemplative than reactive, more spiritual than political, became his way of life and service. Even when years later Pope Francis called him to Rome to take a high position in the Curia, Robert left the same maternal Bible on his desk. He never stopped making notes in the margins, just as his mother did. He never stopped praying the same words he heard in his childhood home. Lord, make me available, not important. John also recounted that during his first year in the Vatican, his brother, then a bishop, declined luxurious apartments. He chose a simple room, adorned only with a cross, an image of St. Augustine, and an old photograph. The only image he carefully preserves to this day is a photograph of his mother praying. The photograph, taken without Mildred's knowledge, captures a woman kneeling with rosary beads in her hands before a small lit candle. Nothing extraordinary, but in this lies the whole essence. And yet, for Robert, this image embodies the quintessence of what the Church should be. That is why many are convinced that his choice of papal name Leo X was not only a sign of respect for great pontiffs of the past, but also a deeply personal tribute to the hidden strength of his mother, like a silent lion, as a woman of unwavering faith. Mildred was an example of how to uphold truth without resorting to loud pronouncements. And today, as the successor of the Apostle Peter, her son continues to follow this example. He does not mention her in his speeches, rarely quotes her words, but those who know him well, who have seen him in action, understand that every one of his actions echoes the quiet influence of the woman who, in a humble home in Illinois, taught him to love God without ostentatious piety. From the moment of his election as Pope, Robert Francis Prévost, now Leo XIV, has evoked a complex blend of surprise and reverence. He is not a pontiff prone to impromptu speeches or impulsive gestures. He does not seek attention or chase sensational headlines. His style is characterized by restraint, almost asceticism. However, those who accompany him know that behind every silence, every pause, every carefully weighed decision lies a much deeper source of character formation: his mother's soul. The Pope's brother John explains this with utmost clarity. When my mother entered the church, she transformed, not uttering a word, not making unnecessary movements, but simply fixing her gaze on the altar. And I think that's what Robert absorbed over the years. To look without seeking to dominate, to be without wishing to appear, to love God in silence. This is the trait many observe in Leo X. From the moment he first appeared on the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, his silence drew attention, and this applied not only to the people in the square but to himself. He surveyed the crowd, bowed deeply, and before uttering any words, spent several seconds in prayer, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. In his first message as Pope, Leo X did not present statistics or institutional promises, but simply stated in a calm voice, "The Lord calls us to humility. My mother taught me that he who kneels at home can support many while standing." This brief mention of his mother went unnoticed by most, but not by his brother John, who, upon hearing these words, admitted he wept silently in front of the television screen because he knew the origin of that phrase. It was one of many truths Mildred repeated when the brothers argued or felt lost. For her, humility was not just a value, but the cornerstone of all authentic faith. It is this humility that is evident today in every decision of the new Pope, in his way of life, in his considerate treatment of Vatican staff, in his decision not to make radical changes to his lifestyle, and in his constant striving for the church to become once again a house of prayer and not merely an administrative institution. One of his first acts as pontiff was to visit a home for elderly nuns. He made this visit without cameras or protocol. He simply came, prayed with them, and upon leaving, asked to be given one of the images of the Sacred Heart that was in the chapel. He explained that this image reminded him of his mother's simple and sincere devotion. This gesture was seen as a silent symbol of what he seeks to bring the church to, not a model of power, but a form of family, a community where love is cultivated in daily life, where the most important things are not conspicuous, but serve as a foundation. John recounts that even now, as Pope, his brother continues to write him letters from time to time, not emails or digital messages, but handwritten lines. In one such letter, written weeks after his election, Robert confessed, "Brother, I still find it hard to comprehend everything that's happening, but I know that Mum is here every step of the way, in every burden, in every prayer, and that's why I keep going." This closeness, this almost silent acknowledgement, reveals more than any biography. What Mildred left her children was not fame or a distinguished history, but a clear direction. And this direction continues to guide the pastor who currently leads over 1 billion Catholics.